Hi, and welcome to another session of Florida's Great Northwest. I'm your host, Larry Sassano, and my special guest today is more than just a guest. He's a very good friend, an old friend, and we've known each other for a number of years. And let me introduce, many of you know him already, Dr. Paul Hsu. Paul, welcome.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for the honor. I'm glad to be here.
Paul has written a book, and I think if you become aware of this book from our discussions, I think it's a book that everyone needs to read because it's so fascinating about Paul's story. And it's more than just a story about his life. It's a story about his family and his struggles and his successes. And he owes all that to not himself, but to the people that he worked with, that he ran across in his life. And the title of the book is Guardians of the Dream. I read the book this week, and I really enjoyed reading it. There was no pictures of me in the book, but I enjoyed it anyway. But let's get into it and talk about your dream there. And what inspired you, Paul, to write this book, Guardians of the Dream?
Well, Larry, you know me well. Yeah. I have done so many little things in my life. Many things. I bought company, I create company, I sold company, I work for the government, just many things. But I have not ever written a book. So this is really a highlight of my career. But truly, the reason I want to write this book, it was 5 years ago. I saw this parade in San Diego. 5 or 6 young men was holding a big banner, and the banner said, "American dream is dead." When I saw that, I just could not help it but thinking how I can get the message out. America is still a land of opportunity. So that was 5 years ago, and I was really busy. I couldn't really sit down and isolate myself. You know, write a book, you have to really have a lot of time. So fortunately, about 2 years ago, I got appointed as a senior research fellow at Harvard Asia Center. So Harvard provided me a perfect environment. So I can think, I can put my thought together. So it took me about a year and a half. So I wrote this book. It's called Guardians of the Dream. About the immigrants. Yeah.
And I know it's not, I have never written a book. I've never attempted to write a book, but I know from others, my wife has written a book, how difficult it was for her. Right. And she's met a lot of other authors, and she asked them the same question, how did you get started? And they said, it took me 10 years to write this book, or it took me 7 years. So I think doing it in Paul Hsu style, you did it in a fast time frame, and an excellent book at that. But let's talk about I think the one element that I think you like to focus on is entrepreneurship.
Right.
Because I think that every time I seem to have a conversation with you, you talk about getting businesses started, helping the small businesses grow, and it's part of the American dream. But let's talk about that entrepreneurial spirit. And can it be learned? Can entrepreneurial spirit be learned, Paul?
Well, as a parent, as a father, I feel like we do have an obligation to kind of guide our children, not really try to take them away from to be an engineer, be a scientist, be a president, and all that. I think it's opportunity to let them think about the entrepreneurship or become an entrepreneur in the later day of their life. Yeah. There are things that we can do, just like the old saying, you lead a horse to the water, and you have no control how much they're going to drink, when they're going to drink. But at least you provide that kind of environment. When 3 of my children were young, I encouraged them to have their own lemonade stand, because I feel like to teach the 7, 8 years old, there's nothing better than lemonade stand about 5 very important elements to be successful in your business, which is the product, the process, the control, the intellectual property right, and the customer. Right. So I give you a quick story. Saturday morning, and all three of them had their own lemonade stand in front of my garage, and weather was good, so the neighbors start walking around, and here comes Mrs. Anderson. So of course, Mrs. Anderson bought the first cup of lemonade from little Jennifer. So she drank it and paid 20 cents. And then little Jessica, looking at her, says, in other words, how about me? So she went ahead and bought another cup. And then John was standing there, but Mrs. Anderson is about 5 feet tall. She couldn't drink no more. So pretty soon the kids learned to be too close to your competitor may not be a good idea. So it took about 30 minutes. Jessica told me, said, Dad, I like to go to Walmart tomorrow. You see?
Yeah.
That's how the kids learn.
Yeah. That's a great story. Well, there's another story you told me once. I think it was about Jessica also. And she came to you, and she was a little older, maybe around 12.
Yeah.
And she wanted to go to NASA Space Camp in Huntsville.
Yeah.
Tell us that story.
Jessica wanted to go to a NASA Space Camp, but it cost $400.
Yeah.
So I asked her, is it maybe too late for a lemonade stand? She said, yeah, because it's only about 2 weeks, and then a Girl Scout cookie that still have no time to make $400. So I asked her, why you want to go to NASA Space Camp? And she gave me a good reason. She wanted to learn aeronautical. She wanted to learn how the synchronized orbit works. She wanted to learn about proportions. She wanted to learn all that. Because I think that girls, we really need to have a little extra help to the girls to make them as an engineer.
Yeah.
So I said, well, that is great. I said, but how are you gonna get your money? And she said, well, I don't know. So that's when the parents can give them a little lead, but not provide them the complete answer.
Right.
So I said, we're fortunate. We're right next to Eglin Air Force Base. There are thousands of engineers working here. There's many engineering organizations like mechanical engineering association, electrical engineers, and industrial engineers. I said, why don't you ask them for their help? Because their job is to create more engineers in the future.
Right.
Well, a day later, Jessica came to me and she created 2 charts. The first chart says, I want to go to NASA Space Camp because I want to learn all these following things, aeronautical, orbit, and all that. And then the second chart says, I would like you to help me for $50. So it's a minimal investment for you to make a good engineer out of me. So she went to 4 organizations instead of 1 to ask $200. She went to 4 and get $50 each. So she made her goal. And today, Jessica, I think she just started her 3rd startup company, and she raised about $1.2 million from New York investment banking firm.
Fantastic. I wish the audience could meet your children because, I've watched them grow up. And they are their father's children. There's no question about it. And I think you told me also that maybe it was Jessica, and you went up to her and you said you were spending some time with her in Washington, I think, and she said, "Oh, Dad, I'm still working. You were busy." And she finally came home late, and you were supposed to have dinner with her, and you said, why do you work so hard? What did she say?
I really wanted to have a dinner with her, but she worked so hard. She didn't come back to the apartment till 9 o'clock at night, and so I was too tired to go out and everything. So the next day morning, I said, "Can you have a cup of coffee with me?" And she says, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I have 30 minutes before I catch the next train to Manhattan." Mm-hmm. So. And we're having a coffee, and I really enjoyed the little time that I spent with her. So I asked her. I said, "Why you work so hard?" And she looked at me and says, "I want to be like you, Dad."
Yeah.
I mean,
how did that make you
that touched my heart, but it's
that's a special thing.
Yeah.
That's something that as a parent you remember, but it shows that Paul, what you've instilled in them, and you and Maggie both, that they've taken the right road to success by watching their parents, you know. And that brings me up to another area. Your mom, 99 years old.
Yeah.
God bless her. I had the good fortune to meet your mom. And you could tell just from that short time I had spent with her that she loves her boy Paul, you know. But when you were a little boy in school, you had a problem with a teacher. And tell us that story, because I love this story, and I love the reaction that your mother had, and then what did you learn from that?
My mother was the breadwinner in my family, because my father always struggled in business. Wasn't very successful, but working so hard, but just not kind of make it. So my mother decided she will share the responsibility. So my mother learned how to sew. So she bought a sewing machine, and I remember as a little boy, then she always, I can hear that she's paddling the sewing machine and all that. And but my mother really made me what I am today. She gave me room to grow, and of course, she has a certain amount of discipline, but she got in the discipline area, but she also leave the room for me to grow, to be myself. Yeah. I wasn't a good boy. I wasn't a good student in school. I always asking why not. So when the school says, well, no chewing gum, well, guess what I'm going to do? I just keep thinking, if I chew gum, I'm not hurting anybody. Why is so bad to have a gum in your mouth? So second time I got caught, and of course, they were very mad. Teacher says, spit it out. So I did spit it out, but I don't understand. I don't know what happened, and the gum hit her face. So that was pretty bad. So they called my mother, and I was 12 years old. My mother took me home. She was very silent, and so I was a little worried. Yeah, this time I'm going to get it. But after a while, she looked at me and she said, well, maybe this place may not be good enough for you. Let's find a better place. Wow. That alone, no punishment, just wisdom. I feel like somebody trusted in me. Somebody prove, not in the sense, but know that the reason I did it, know that what I did. So later on in my life, I really have no fear. If I feel like this is the right thing to do, or this is something I want to do, as long as I'm not hurting anybody, as long as this is ethical things, I'm going to do it. And Larry, come to think of it, that's an entrepreneur spirit. That's an entrepreneurship. So I love to create companies, so I create a few, and I like to grow them, so I grow a few, and I'm still doing that. So that's another wonderful story. But it's so interesting, Paul, how from that one episode when you were a little boy, what you learned from that, and it didn't go. You didn't come back and say, "Oh, I can chew gum anytime I want now." No, you learned that your mother supported you. Right. And you had that support mechanism right there, and that was a positive thing for you. So that's a wonderful story. Thanks. Now, folks, I know we're talking about stories, and we're not talking about what we usually talk, but all these stories are in this wonderful book, Guardians of the Dream. And I want another story, because I met the Millers also. Oh. 38 years ago, you moved to the center of the United States, Missouri, because you got a scholarship. And I know you only had $500 in your pocket, and that had to go through for tuition and so forth. And so you didn't have a lot of money. And you were in a foreign country for all that. And but you met a couple that had a little business. Tell us about the Millers. Okay. Well, yes, I have $500 in my pocket, and I that's including the tuition I have to pay. Again, this is 40 years ago, in Missouri, University of Central Missouri. I have to pay like $350 for tuition for that 1 quarter, 1 term. So I really don't have that much money left. Well, the school cafeteria provide food from Monday through Friday. So I'm not hungry. But Saturday and Sunday, there's no cafeteria. So I save enough food for Saturday, but Sunday kind of a tough. So one Sunday afternoon, I was hungry. So I was walking around and I saw this mom and pop hamburger store just right off campus. So I want to make sure I have enough money to get the food I want. So I was counting the money. I was make sure I have enough. So I went to the counter and I look at the menu. I said to the man that I want a cheeseburger. And the man asked me, anything else? I said, no, just cheeseburger. He says, anything to drink? I said, no, just water. So I pay him. I spent all these changes on the table, so he counted. So, that was okay. So I sit there and waiting for my food. And here comes my food. I got not only a hamburger that I ordered, but a bunch of French fries and a big piece of fried chicken. I was surprised. I let him know this. I did not order all that. And he said, well, it's on the house, son. That's how I meet Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller and Mrs. Miller, Mary Miller, took me their home, and meet their children. So I became the big brother to all their 3 children, and it's just from our first generation of immigrants, and in Missouri, I don't even know a single soul. So from the not belonging feeling to belonging feeling, it's just really tremendous for me. Mr. Miller always have something to show me, always have something to lend a helping hand. Saturday afternoon, he will go to the library and look for me and say, close all the books, come with me. So he gave me a ride. I don't even have a car. So first time I saw the scenery of beautiful state of Missouri. And then that's how I learned English, because remember, I can barely speak English that time. And I saw one day, I remember this, I saw these cows in the field. I said, wow, David, look at those cows. And he says, no, Paul, those, we call them Angus. So I wrote down Angus on the little book I have. Mr. Miller, David Miller, he's a jack of all trades. He owned a small hamburger store. He owned a used furniture store, and then he also sell radio times for a local radio station. So one day, David said, come with me. I'm going to have a brand new business call. The new car dealership just started up in town, so I want to meet this general manager and sell them some radio time. I said, okay, that sounded interesting. So David walked into this man's office. They never met. And the brief introduction later, David started talking about fishing. Truman Lake's fishing is bad, but Pearl Spring Lake is wonderful. And the guy's just very interesting. He kept knocking his head and he took notes. So that went on about 5-10 minutes, and then he's talking about kids baseball. Like, the word's going to be the state championships and all that. And the guy was very interesting to hear about that also. And toward very end, just before we left the office, the guy says, yeah, let me just buy 20 minutes for the next 4 weeks. My God, he made the sale.
Yeah.
So in the car, I say, David, what make you think you can talk about fishing and the kids' baseball? What gave you the idea? David said, simple, Paul. Just look around these walls. He says, listen, people only interested to talk about something they're interested in, not what you're interested in.
Yeah.
They only do business with someone they like.
Yeah.
But before that, you have to make sure that you are likable.
Yeah.
So
that's a great lesson. What Paul doesn't share, in his book, he shares all these wonderful things that people did for him, but he doesn't talk about the things that he did for them in return. And throughout his life, the Millers, Paul invited them here, put them up always a couple weeks, and a lot more things that I'm sure Paul would be embarrassed for me to talk about. But Paul always gave back to the people that gave to him. And that's another great attribute that you have, Paul.
Thank you, Larry.
I know we're running a long time, but I want to talk about something because I know it's very important to you. And that is these are these 5 things that you call freedom, ingenuity, integrity, opportunity, inclusion. Why are they unique to America?
Well, people keep asking me, you keep talking about American dream. What is American dream? To me, American dream is a combination of these 5 things you have just mentioned. Freedom, ingenuity, integrity, opportunity, and inclusion. Freedom. Many other countries in this world think freedom as a principle, but only America, freedom is our core value. Ingenuity. Well, only in America you can come with nothing, but you end up with an entrepreneur. In a way, it's encouraged. Just name one country in this whole wide world that the government, the U.S. government, will tell the banker and said, well, go ahead and loan him the money. Since I know he got nothing, but I guarantee 85% of it. And the banker, of course, want to loan your money, help the small business to grow, because it's a community thing. But since the banker can lower their risk from 100% down to 15%, and the banker, obviously, much more willing to loan the money. So that's only America. And technology, we're the leading technology country in the whole wide world. Opportunity, we have $16 trillion GDP. It's higher than the next 4 countries combined. So if you look at the economic, we are absolutely the giant. So of course there's lots of opportunities here. And inclusion, again, 150 million people in this world want to come to the United States and live here permanently. Why? Well, because we're good. We're the country of immigrants. But most importantly, 85% of Americans believe that their community is good for immigrants. So that kind of an inclusion make American is probably one of the most generous, most kind people I ever know.
And you're one of them.
Oh, thank you, Larry. Thank you.
We only have time for maybe one more question, Paul. And I know there's so many stories in the book and about how you started certain companies and were successful with them. And again, you don't draw upon any of the negative things that I know took place that impact you, but you move forward. And I think that just says a lot about your character too. And I can say that as a friend that I know that character very well. But you've written a book, you've started and still own very successful companies that are growing. I want to ask you one more question. What next? I don't know. I want to spend more time with my grandson. I'm the brand new grandfather, just about a year ago, and now the second one's coming, so I will become a grandfather again. So, and family, it is important to me. So yeah, that's what I want to do. And in your book you have pictures of the whole family.
Yes.
And what a beautiful family. I mean, and they all seem naturally very happy. But I've always thought that when I met Maggie and your children, they were all so gracious. And I remember your surprise 50th birthday party. Remember that? And you were surprised.
That was a long time ago.
And you surprised 60th birthday party. And Maggie and the kids all put that together. And that was an honor to be part of that and to share that, and the many, many more experiences I wish we had time to talk about. But I want to wish you great success
Thank you.
with the book, Paul. And if you, and can you talk about the book in terms of how people could?
Yeah. Well, basically, the book is really written for the young people in this country. I just want them to understand that, hey, America, it's truly a land of opportunity. There are so many things you can do. Just very quickly, in the past like 40 years, almost every 20 years, you have these things called industrial revolution.
Right.
40 years ago was plastic, polypropylene, polyethylene.
Right.
20 years ago was computer. And what's the next 20 years? And so the young men really need to understand that to prepare themselves. The next 20 years to me is going to be energy, going to be environmental engineering, right? So the 4 fields that you really need to concentrate on for the young man, which is the stand for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Right.
And these is really make the United States such a great country in the world. Of course, other fields are important, but in 2018, there will be almost 8 million jobs, all created because in these 4 fields. So if you want to be the part of a society, you really need to concentrate on that. And that's the main purpose of the
It's
book.
in the book, folks. And Dr. Hsu, it's a pleasure to have you on the show again. I'm your host, Larry Sassano, Florida's Great Northwest. I hope you enjoyed this segment with Dr. Hsu, and I did. And we'll have you on again, Paul, and talk about your next thing, okay?
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.